I'm back with another video in which I talk about deities I have a devotional relationship with. I started out as a Celtic polytheist by reaching out to Lugh and Brigid and Belinos. I've talked about that before here. How I arrived at those three was simply because I felt they each had some kind of association with the part of Scotland I lived in, and I knew a tiny bit about them. I feel like I chose pretty well, even though none of them are quite in my inmost circle these days. And one of the next deities I got interested in was Manannán Mac Lir. I've learned that how close I feel to different deities changes over time. At any given time, there'll be a few deities I feel closest to, and a few others that are nearly as close, and some who are less close, but still important sometimes. And there's some movement back and forth. Sometimes I'm aware of it. Sometimes it makes me a little sad or I want to fight the change. These changes are usually gradual over years, and I think they're pretty natural for polytheists. There are gods who have always been peripheral for me, some I'm curious about even now, and some of those will become more central over time, I expect. I'm sure this isn't how polytheism works for everyone, but it seems to for a lot of us. I've followed Manannán for many years. He's a deity who has really stood the test of time, and we have so much evidence for his continued importance right into the modern period. Around Edinburgh and the Firth of Forth, the area used to be called Manow. Later, part of the area became Clackmannanshire, named after an ancient stone which once guarded the mouth of the River Forth at a place called Clackmannan. The whole area is named for this stone, Clach Stone Mannan, Mannan's stone. Even though its history is barely remembered, it's been carefully preserved over the centuries. Meanwhile, in the Western Isles of Scotland, people gave offerings to Manannán into the sea, often calling him Shawnee, possibly because of his associations with St. John the Baptist. These offerings might be ale or porridge, or they might slaughter an animal. They trusted that this would ensure a good crop of seaweed, which they used to fertilize their crops, or it would ensure good fishing. In the Isle of Man, the offerings were made on a mountain top around St. John's Day and Midsummer. The people of Man saw Manannán as a protective and benevolent deity, as their first king, or both. Many people in Man still do. Both the Manx custom and the one in the Western Isles continued into the 18th or 19th century, in spite of the people making them being Christians. I can't think of many deities found in Britain or Ireland for whom we have that kind of evidence of ongoing devotion and offerings, unless they were transformed into saints, of course. And it often makes me wonder why modern Celtic polytheists don't give Manannán more attention. Come on, guys. So you'll discover that Manannán is another deity about whom I have a big playlist of videos, which I'll link at the end of this video, and I teach a class about him every year too. If you'd like to delve a little deeper into the topics in my videos, you might enjoy taking one of my online classes. There's almost always something on offer. Some classes have tiered pay what you can pricing, and there are usually a few scholarships available for the more expensive classes. To get notifications about classes and about scholarships when they're announced, you can go to my website and subscribe to my newsletter or follow me on my Patreon page. Manannán Mac Lir and his Welsh counterpart Manawydan Fab Lir are highly complex characters. They have associations with the other world and with the law and good judgment. They're often on hand as mentors or foster parents to kings and future kings. Manannán sometimes appears to kings in disguise, make sure they learn important lessons about fairness and hospitality. He usually appears as gentle, humble, and wise, yet powerful. He can occasionally be stern, but he usually comes in friendship. Manannán seems to have complete mastery of magic and illusion, and to move between the worlds and through the worlds effortlessly. At the same time, his interest in justice and fairness, it's something we need right now. I say he's worthy of honor and offerings for all these reasons. And he's an ideal god to turn to for wisdom and justice and help. He's skilled and generous, wise and fair. Manannán is seen as the king of the otherworld, even being the one to apportion dwellings to the Tuatha Dé Danann and act as their overking after their defeat by the sons of Mil. He's a friend of the Tuatha Dé, but not exactly one of them, probably due to his Manx origins. He doesn't seem to be much changed by the comings and goings of Ireland's settlers and invaders. And in early texts which mention him, you can sometimes sense that the scribes are struggling to explain who he is. Sometimes they call him a god. Sometimes they suggest that there must be more than one Manannán, since he appears in so many places and times. At first, I just saw Manannán as an interesting figure in stories, but then I encountered one particular story called The Voyage of Bran. There's a point in that story where an Irish king called Bran, out on the sea with his men, encounters Manannán, whose words to Bran are astonishing and powerful. When they meet, Manannán isn't in a boat, he's driving a chariot over the surface of the sea. That's magical enough in itself, but mythology's full of magic, and it's what Manannán says to Bran, which affected me deeply. Hope I'm equal to explaining it. Manannán tells Bran that what Bran perceives as the open sea is actually a pleasant green land filled with birdsong and fruit and happy, sinless, immortal beings. The prow of your boat scrapes along hill peaks and through orchards, he tells Bran, and the salmon who leap from the water are my calves and gentle lambs. Manannán's words, delivered over many stanzas of the most gorgeous poetry, don't feel like a metaphor. They seem to be describing a literal parallel reality, an adjacent world. Perhaps Manannán is hinting that the world he sees is somehow the truer one, yet he clearly sees both. He's aware that what Bran perceives is a solid material reality, while at the same time, Manannán describes his own world in similar terms. This picture of two individuals, one in a boat, the other in a chariot, close enough to speak to one another, yet perceiving two entirely different worlds, has always affected me deeply. It feels like pure liminality. These two realities aren't just bordering on one another, like a mirror reflection or the meeting of land and water at the river's edge. The two realities are superimposed on one another. They coexist. I believe that being allowed to experience a taste of this provides a kind of enlightenment, and it's often Manannán who is willing to take us there. When I was a child, we'd go to church. It was a pleasant experience to me. Candles, flowers, music, stained glass windows. The sermons at our church were more humanism than hellfire. It was that glass, though, the light shining through colored glass onto the purple carpet and the dark wood pews. I'm sure that I had my first transcendent experiences there. The light shining through colored windows, illuminating them, making them more than pictures, but more real and at the same time surreal somehow. The sunlight from the park and the street outside, which I knew so well as the everyday world, mixing with the colored glass pictures and with whatever the colored light landed on inside. The windows had sashes, and in the summer, when it was hot, they'd be raised for us to get a breeze. We could hear the birds singing outside. We were in both worlds at once. It taught me something which made more sense later, when I understood how the other world can be immanent in our own. That's a lesson which is repeatedly taught by Manannán. So I'll leave you with Manannán's speech to Bran to use as a meditation. I'll put a still image on the screen. You can look at it if it helps you focus, or close your eyes if you prefer. If you need to get more comfortable, pause the video now and do that. Make yourself comfortable and close your eyes if that feels okay. Take a few slow, deep, calming breaths at your own pace and just let go of everything. Enjoy letting time stop for a little while. Imagine you're in a boat on the open sea. It's a fine day. The sea is gentle underneath you. A mist comes up, but it doesn't last long. When it clears, you see Manannán driving his two-wheeled chariot over the sea. He begins to speak. Bran beholds the glassy sea traveling in his coracle, but I have driven far today, and I have seen nothing but a broad, flowering plain. The clear sea which Bran believes he is sailing in his high-prowed boat, I tell you, I have driven over it in my two-wheeled chariot today, and it is a plain with a profusion of flowers. The waves that Bran believes he sees gathering in the clear water, no, I see only faultless crimson flowers growing on this plain of sport. Waves like white horses shine as far as Bran has looked in every direction. Oh, but no, rivers run with honey in the land of Manannán Mac Lir. Though you row over the bright, reflective surface of the sea, you are suspended in its pale hue, if only you knew it. I am looking right at it, at a smooth land, beautiful and yellow with flowers. The speckled salmon you see, leaping from the belly of the shining ocean, I tell you, they are my calves and spotted lambs, friendly and gentle. Though you see but one chariot rider crossing this honeyed plain with its many flowers, many horses are there to be seen. If only you could. This is a vast plain indeed, with numerous hosts in bright colored clothing, cloth of silver and gold upon them. They would welcome you with every bounty. They sit at delightful gaming boards, drinking the finest wine. Some turn aside as couples, their union amongst the bushes a sinless act. You never noticed how you sailed over hills and ridges. Oh, there are fruit trees under the hull of your little ship, an orchard of blossom and fruit with the fragrance of wine, a perfect wood which never grows old, whose leaves shine like gold. Since time began, we have been here, and we do not grow old or go to lie in graves. We do not expect sickness or old age. Sin has not touched us.